Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. So I suggest we slowly get into the call. So everyone out there, thank you for joining. This is the June update call for Jakarta EE enthusiasts. We're thrilled to have you on the call. And as always, we will place the recording and all the materials that we're using on this call at the community folder. Yeah, we're ready to go ahead and start. So this is our agenda for today, and we'll start with Dmitry and Ed and Ivar on Jakarta EE 8 release and updates related to that. So Ed, I know you said you're ready, so I'll stop sharing on my end and just hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. Let's see if I can get this working. So this and there we go. All right, does that look good to everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
Seems to be off the bottom there, but okay. So I just wanted to give a quick overview about the high-level goals for this Jakarta EE 8 release. It's not my intent to undersell this. I'm just trying to give everybody a a feel for what it is we're actually delivering and what are the tasks, the top-level things that we're working on. Let's see. So for Jakarta EE 8. The high-level deliverables are essentially just we want to release the same set of compliance and quality criteria. We're going to release those to match what when we released the Eclipse Glassfish 5.1. So Eclipse Glassfish 5.1 was tested and is listed as a certified compatible Java EE 8 application server, and we're basically going to use that as the the keystone for a confirmation that all of the TCKs, all the rest of the material that would verify compliance is identical to what we had in Java EE 8, but contributed, licensed, and approved and ratified by then all of the new Jakarta EE specifications, the specification process, the TCK requirements, etc. So in some ways, if you think about this in terms of its functionality, this is really just a licensing change, licensing and branding. And effectively that will complete all of the contributions, at least from, well, it should complete all the contributions for Java EE 8, and it will we'll be able to leapfrog off that and move firmly and rapidly into the delivery of the next functional updates for Jakarta EE 8. So each specification will be ratified by the Jakarta EE 8, the Jakarta EE processes. The specifications themselves, probably many of you know this, there'll be a specification document, an API release, a TCK, and then we will verify that everything tests out and meets the compatibility requirements for the Jakarta release process. For those of you who don't know, we will be, there are two guiding documents that we'll be following. There's the Eclipse Foundation specification process. You might see that abbreviated EFSP from time to time. And then Wayne's actually written up a blog that says, that's rewrites that in a what does this mean to me in a step-by-step process. So and then the last then building on that, the way that Eclipse is set this up. You can their general and additional occasions, and we'll be and the Jakarta EE that um, so have you'll be able to design goal for obviously reach but they're very competitive. We should want to be able to record both and questions, free parties, or Jakarta really. There will be to the plug and the web is called a his name, a new extension to be with our. We're trialing through release process. The specification is valid, being for their I think this reviews so that we can the creations are part of Java EE will be released and ready to go. Look for these to be combined together in bulk ballots, and it's the specification committee and the steering committees that will vote on these. A key feature of the Jakarta EE release was the open sourcing of the Jakarta EE TCKs. What's in the TCK? The TCK itself, collection of documentation, exclude lists, and basically, this was a standalone, I guess, required part of each API, but most of us didn't get to look at those because they were licensed by Oracle. Now they're available open source. The TCK project is open source, and all the TCK jobs are currently, well, most of the TCK jobs are currently combined in an Eclipse Eclipse operated Jenkins server. So there's a lot of information here. A lot of stuff is written about how these work, and I assume that more and more people will dig in and get their hands dirty with the TCKs as things move forward. They're already being built. They're already running against Eclipse Class 5.1. The results are, in fact, essentially they're as stable as we have ever seen, as they have ever been. We're trying to work with the Eclipse admins to improve that stability even further. So just some quick questions that I came up with, right? So we're using the same TCKs to, we're using these Jakarta EE TCKs to validate that all of the released API jars are proven proven to be compatible. A couple of questions that have come up: can components generate an update release in Jakarta EE8? As long as they still pass the Jakarta EE8 TCKs and/or CTS, that's fine. People have asked if there's going to be a new Glassfish release. I don't think currently the Glassfish team has put together a plan for that. If it decides to do that, we could release a new Glassfish, but that's not a must-have for this particular project. So essentially, if project teams want to make releases, we can try to accommodate that in the release schedule. But our goal is verify the TCKs work, verify the TCKs pass what they, in the same way that they have before. Well, sometimes people will ask, how can I help? There's a lot of ways we could use, we could use community help. There's a lot of text that needs to be updated for things like switching over from how did Oracle provide support to how are we going, what should anybody who wants to use any of the TCKs or any of the binary material, how are they going to get support? Switching over things to point to the Jakarta EE branded documents or the required documents. You can just join start the GitHub projects and watch them if you're interested, and jump in and provide feedback. I think a lot of people tend to think, oh, I'm not a developer, I can't really help them. But if you're interested, if you've got time, we're ready to sign you up. So that's it for the sort of the summary of this. But I did want to talk a little bit about the schedule. And Dmitry Kornilov is here with us. Dmitry, you want to sort of walk us through this?
Great. So, yeah, these planes create independent Jakarta EE8 must be released before Jakarta live stream, which is 10th of September, and definitely before Oracle Kurba. So we have two main reviews here. We have creation reviews for the project, and we have final release review, which takes a long time, which takes a month. We skipped actually all other reviews because if we had other reviews, then we won't fit into time we have. The reviews are marked orange on the spreadsheet. So the current date is today is 12th of June, right? It's highlighted, it's marked here. So we are at the middle of basically second batch of creation reviews should start today, and we will have another week to complete creation or restructuring review in order to create specification projects. The second task, next task is create update specification documents. We can start doing that, then specification projects are actually created. And we have 3 weeks for that. This is supposed to be not really complicated task, and hopefully it will be completed on time. At the same time, we should start updating Java docs. Update Java docs includes removing all GCP stuff from README files and Java docs and putting correct information about Eclipse JASP there, and changing links and this kind of stuff. At the same time, we need to start working on delivering TCKs. Actually, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong chart. It started already, and Ed already explained that. This is about TCKs itself. And the next task is about TCKs jobs for specifications projects. It means that each project has to create a Jenkins job which runs standalone TCKs for these particular APIs. We need to make sure that updated API, we're not going to be binary updates, we're going to be Java docs and README updates, but anyway, we need some confirmation that it passes the new TCKs. And this task can be a little bit complicated. We are working with my folks to make a special, not a special, one job which can be used as a template for other projects. So when it's done, we will share some information how we've done it, so others can take it and make jobs for their project. So everything I talked about so far have to be completed before 15th of July. So 15th of July is kind of a critical date.
Dmitry, can you make can you zoom in? We can barely see the dates, and you are talking something very important that means the TCK and the deadlines. Thank you. This is Amelia, by the way. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, my connection is not stable, so I didn't hear everything you said. Can you please repeat
No, it's
it?
fine. You just said, I just said make it bigger, and you did a little bit, so it's great. Thank you.
I got you, Dmitry. She just needed it bigger. We're good.
All right. Okay. So,
So the crucial dates are, we'll have release candidate TCKs available the week of the 15th of July, and then the next crucial deadline is we want to have all the specifications on ballot or starting their ballot the week of the July 22nd. That's to accommodate the 30-day ballot review period. And then that gives us effectively a week to get everything buttoned up before the week of the 10th, right? So, so those are the dates. We've been circulating this at the through the committees, but we wanted to let the yep, thanks, Tanya. We wanted to let the community know that those are the dates we're working on. Dmitry, I think we're getting the hook. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
no, that's it. So, yeah.
Okay, I see there's some questions or comments on the chat. I don't know. I'll answer those offline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanya, whoever's next, or I guess it's Ivar.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were on mute on multiple devices, so that's why I was talking into either. So I think we're expecting update from Ivar, just closer to projects, exactly what's going on. Ivar, are you there? If you are, you're on mute.
No.
Oh,
He's good.
So for the project names, we are pretty good. As you see, it's only a couple of project left that we need to finalize on the names. So if anybody has any inputs or any strong opinions about the names, just comment on these issues. For the scope statements that we need for Jakarta EE8 is a little bit, the status there isn't just as good. So I think this is pretty accurate, but here in the next couple of days we will start just writing scope statements for the project. So if you're involved in any of these technologies and you like to have a say in what the scope of the project should be, this is the time you should go in and comment on the issues. And as soon as the names and the scope statements are ready and approved by the spec committee, we are initiating the restructuring reviews. And as you see, we've started the review of 5 of these projects. So as soon as we get the names over and we can batch these through the process, we will be getting all these spec projects up and running. So that's about the status of the specs and scope statements, and that's about what I had to say today. So back to you, Tanya.
okay. Thank you, Ivar. So I guess the next speaker is Wayne Beaton, and he will he will actually talk about the JCP copyright licensing.
All right. Share. Let's see how this goes. All right. So I thought I would just kind of actually a lot of what Ed said and a little bit of what Ivar said is actually in here, but I figured I would go through it quickly anyway. Our next step, what we're working on right now, is to take all of these Eclipse Project 4 projects that we previously created. These projects all contain things like TCKs and APIs, and in a couple of cases, implementations of specifications. None of them actually include specification documents presently. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these Eclipse projects, we're going to take the new name and the new scope, that statement that Ivar just spoke about. We're going to run it through the restructuring review, which I've represented, I think, rather cleverly as a transmogrifier. I'm hoping people get the reference. And then magically, we wind up with a specification project at the end of this restructuring review. There's a little bit of work for me to do here in terms of updating project metadata, updating the nature of these projects, and making sure that we have everything set up properly for specification projects. But basically, it's a kind of a magical event that transforms these projects into the right state. Now, as Ivar pointed out, we do have a GitHub board set up to track the work that's being done here. And as I gather the information, or as I see that the information is available from the project teams regarding project names and scopes, I'm creating a new issue in this board, and that issue is being created in a GitHub repository that belongs to the project. So, for example, I will create an issue regarding converting the platform, Jakarta EE platform project in the Jakarta EE platform's Git repository. Now, having said that, I think that's actually a bad example because I don't think it has one, but that's the gist of it. So basically, we're going to take all of these projects and we're going to convert them into specification projects. And I thought I'd just give a couple of examples of how this will manifest. What we have now, for example, is the Eclipse project for Servlet will become Jakarta Servlet. The specification documents themselves, which is what Tanya actually asked me to speak about. Right now, the specification documents associated with all of these specifications are under a JCP license. There's a variety of different licenses, but basically they are not under licenses that we can use in an open source specification development context. An additional wrinkle is that while they're under this license, they're also, in many cases, potentially owned by a variety of copyright holders. Essentially, anybody who was on an expert group associated with a specification JSR could potentially own copyright in these documents. And in order to change a license into a form that we can use, we need their input, their permission to do so. So with this in mind, we have created an agreement and have started a process of sending this agreement out to the people who we believe might hold an interest in these specification documents. If you have received one of these, it would be very helpful to us and the entire community that's forming around Jakarta EE that you sign this and return it to the Eclipse Foundation. This, again, the idea here is you will be giving us permission to relicense the specification context in a manner that can be used by the open source specification project. So I'm just going to repeat myself. The ask is, if you receive a request for this, could you please respond? If you have any questions or concerns, please make those known. We've had a few people ask some really interesting questions, which I'm going to move into an FAQ because they're great questions. If you're not sure, please ask, and we're happy to help you work through this. So once I have all of that copyright holder approval, we can take the specification document source form, which thank you very much to our good friends over at Oracle. They have taken all of the specification documents that they had in their possession and converted them from various formats, including FrameMaker and Tech and Microsoft Word and all sorts of different formats, and have converted them into ASCII doc format. So I have those in my possession, and as we clear these documents, as we have all of the agreements in place from all of the potential authors for these documents, we are going to throw them into our transmogrifier and translate them into an EPL 2.0 license, and then contribute them to the corresponding specification project that we created in the previous step. The details of this are I'm not sure how important they are, but the projects, the teams that have been engaged already in these projects are familiar with our means of doing intellectual property work, our IPzilla. We will transfer them to those project teams through that. We will, of course, communicate with the project teams as this is occurring. Just for note, I put JCP license on my transmogrifier, meaning whatever license they're currently in. This is, again, is a variety of licenses. And I put EPL 2.0 because that was easier than saying that there is actually a variety of licenses. Most of our projects are EPL 2.0. Some of them use, I think there's a couple that use an Apache too. But anyway, so it's basically go from existing license to project license is what I intend here. Once we have these specifications in the repository transferred over to the project teams, we're going to ask those project teams to engage to update these specification documents to replace uses of trademark names that we're not going to. We have to be very mindful of other people's trademarks. We need to make sure that these documents do not violate the trademarks of others and that they correctly use the names of the projects and specifications as they will be known under Jakarta EE 8. There may have been, I've noticed, just a small number of inconsistencies in the documents after being translated. So certainly some sanity passes and sort of validate that the content is accurate and correct, and that there was, smooth out any anomalies that may have occurred during transition. At this point, we require that the project teams not make substantial changes. The Jakarta EE 8 specifications need to be need to be in parity with the Java EE 8 specifications. So no changes to the specifications, please. Just kind of, again, work out the formatting and the trademark issues, please. And we will, again, continue to work with the project teams to ensure that this happens as smoothly as possible. There'll be one final transmogrification at the end once we're all done and we have specifications and we have specification documents. All of the projects will engage in release review. With this release review, the specification document will change its license to the Eclipse Foundation specification license. And it is the version of this document that is distributed under the Eclipse Foundation specification license that vendors will use to create their implementations. And I just, this is a picture I've displayed before. The final specification is the composition of all of these different artifacts. A specification document under the specification license. The TCK will also transmogrify, and there will be an Eclipse Foundation TCK licensed version of that. The technical artifacts would be API generally. And then some number of one or more compatible implementations will be referenced as part of that final specification. And with that, I believe I've come under the 10 minutes allocated to me. And I turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wayne. I just put in the chat, and I will say it out loud. The questions are welcome in the chat. We just have tons of material to cover, and we want to make sure we get through it. But we will also get to your questions either at the end or we will follow up later on. So next we have Scott Stark to talk to us about the TCK process and update on that front. Scott, are you around?
Yep. Let me get bring this up.
Are you sharing or?
I am looking to share.
Okay, great. I saw you put your slides earlier in the community folder, so just want to make sure that you intend to share.
Good morning, Scott. Let's keep the slides while you are finding the presentation. Good morning and night to everyone across the globe that is on the call.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding the window.
Scott, you want, would it be easier for you if I share?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll do that. So let me just share my screen here.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so what I want to go over quickly is just the current status of our TCK process guide that we've been working on. That's the last slide there. So basically the highlights are that we've defined the contents that are required for a TCK release, namely that there needs to be an open source version of the TCK, which can either be EPL or Apache or the current approved licenses. Those can be used for compatibility testing without any restrictions in terms of additional licenses, but those cannot be used for branding rights. There's a separate, I guess, blessed or ratified version of the TCK that will be licensed under the Eclipse Foundation TCK license, which is the EFTL acronym there. That will be available after the specification has been ratified and approved by the specification committee, and then that binary will be put up on Jakarta EE and will be signed for use for claims of compatibility with rights to use the branding and trademarks of Jakarta. In addition, we've defined what content needs to be part of that TCK, which will include user guides that define the software requirements, how you install it, configure it, run the test, any specific rules, for example, setting up databases, JMS, etc. And there will also be a list of the current TCK excludes, which are the listed tests that are currently under challenge and have been accepted as currently not valid or need to be updated, and will be addressed in future versions of the specs. We also defined the mechanism by which a TCK is ratified, approved via the specification committee, and then have the EFTL binary signed and promoted to the Jakarta EE website. That issue, that Bugzilla issue that I'm referencing there, is the current issue that we hope have open with the webmaster on how exactly that process is going to be done for the TCK processes. Go next slide, Tanya. We defined the TCK challenge process whereby an implementer can challenge a test using the issue tracker for the specification project. We define an equivalent process via which an implementation can claim compatibility and then gain access to the branding rights and promotion via the website. Then we defined an escalation process for appeals and grievances. So if there's any issues with the handling of a TCK challenge or any aspect of the TCK process or compatibility testing, how you handle that's been defined. And lastly, last slide, please. The last 2 points that are under discussion but aren't necessarily gating factors for blocking the upcoming Jakarta EE release are defining what the requirements are around how compatible products need to be kept in sync with TCK releases, as well as how do we add tests throughout the life cycle of a TCK, for example, to improve coverage without necessarily imposing an additional burden on implementers relative to a non-update of the specification. So that's where we are as of today. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Scott. This is Amelia.
Yep.
Scott, tell me something. Where do we have the documentation? Is it still private or is it shared already in the repos?
Well, it's in a Google Doc, so I'm not sure. It's probably only available to the specification committee at this point.
Okay.
The component that affects the TCK user guide and the various projects will be rolling out to those as soon as we ratify that, which should be within the next couple of weeks. And then we'll obviously be producing a PDF for that as well.
Okay, and if I wanted to know about the timelines, do you think the specification committee will send to the community, not the working group, to the community forum, an update with, you know, potential deadlines? I think a level of transparency on the process, as you have specified, without providing dates, might be helpful to bring those who want to contribute to code and maintenance to be informed and participate via PR review and everything else that goes into TCK waters.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's our goal, is to get that out as soon as possible at this point.
So then we can expect an update to the community forum as soon as the specification committee has the dates agreed on, correct?
Yeah, sure, yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. So moving on, let's get the update on the discussion that is going on with regards to javax namespace. So David, do you want to take over?
Tanya, we have a question by Edwin. Can we give him some space to ask? And Edwin, the next time, just raise your hand through the Zoom chat. And
actually, Amelia, what we'd like to do is get through the agenda, and then we'll deal with the questions at the end.
Yeah. So I asked people to post their questions. So Edwin, thank you so much for the question. We'll get back. We'll make sure we address it.
This is Paul. Sorry, I jumped in, but just so everyone on the call understands, we understand there's a lot coming here from a fire hose. The fact that we only have an hour and we want to touch each of these topics because we think each of the topics is important to the community. We understand there's many questions related to each of these. And so hopefully what will happen is the questions either on the chat or perhaps even better afterwards, you know, these questions can be raised and become threads on the community email list. But we do want to make sure that everybody has a chance to get through the topics. So thanks for your understanding on that, because we know it's a lot. It's all time critical. So.
Yeah. So David, do you have anything to share with us, or?
And if you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah. David?
He looks frozen.
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah.
So let's maybe
move on to the
switch
next
around.
step?
Yeah. Until David figures out. So Mike DeNicola, do you want to take over?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll try to share my screen here.
Yeah, let me know if you need help there.
Yes. Hello, world.
Hello, Mike D. You look amazing. Let's do a small chat while you find your presentation.
Oh, that's interesting. Tanya, can we use that? Can you share the screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Yep.
For some
Let
reason,
me
it's
just
not.
share.
It's not
I found
coming
it.
here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a problem. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. All right. The developer survey was conducted in March of this year, and there were almost 1,800 participants, and there are about 1,800 participants. Okay. The goal of the survey was to help the Java ecosystem stakeholders better understand the requirements, priorities, and perceptions of enterprise Java developer communities. The survey was promoted on social media, on the Jakarta EE website, and through partners such as the London Java community and the Java user groups. Okay, I'm seeing the TCK process.
I'm sorry, something happened on my end. Let me just pull the file again.
Sure. There we go.
Apologies.
That's it. Thank you. So at any rate, the top 3 community priorities for Jakarta EE turned out to be better support for microservices, native integration with Kubernetes. Both of those actually tied as being the #1 with 61% stating them as the priority. And then the product quality reference implementation at 37%, which is actually quite a bit below that. The key item, I think, of the survey shows that cloud deployments are increasing over 2018. The cloud native is critically important today. 32% of the developers are currently building cloud native architectures, and another 30% plan to do so within the next 12 months. The number of Java applications running in the cloud is projected to increase significantly over the next 2 years. With more than 60% of Java applications in the cloud in 2 years. Microservices is the leading architecture for implementing Java systems in the cloud, with 43% of the respondents citing that as their choice of architecture. Java EE 8 adoption has picked up, and it currently stands at 37%, which is up quite a bit from last year. When we did the survey in 2018, it was only 21%. Java EE 7 is 44% is the version most deployed into production. I can't see the bottom of this screen. There we go. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I got it. With Java EE 6 coming in third. Java 11 uses its surge, and it looks as though people are leapfrogging Java 9 and 10, while Java 8 adoption has remained steady at about 84%. Spring and Spring Boot continue to dominate as the leading framework for building cloud native applications. The Eclipse microprofile growth is exponential, with reputed usage growing from 13% to 28% of respondents in this year's survey. The top 3 titles of survey respondents are were senior developers, architects 23%, junior developers 19%, which is up from 12% last year. Others were development managers, team leaders, and a small number, 3% of C-level developers. 60% of the respondents work in organizations with fewer than 500 employees. The top 3 industry verticals were the IT area, which is not surprising, the financial services, and education. 56% of the respondents surveyed are located in Europe. By Europe, it's actually EMEA, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. 18% were from the Asia Pacific, 13% were from North America, and 13% from the Caribbean and Latin America. So that's not surprising since Europe the Europeans are, I think, leading the way in terms of enterprise Java. I believe that is all I have.
Thank you so much, Mike. And just a reminder to everyone that these slides and all other slides will be available in the community drive.
Let me just add one thing. I meant to do
Sure.
this. Mike, I want to quote Mike Milinkovich, who said, "What's most interesting is to see the acceleration in the adoption of Java in new cloud-native architecture, which clearly the future of Jakarta EE is cloud-native." And that was a quote from Mike Milinkovich, who's not on this call.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that. So going back to David, I believe. David, are you good to go?
I am good to go. Thank you much.
Okay,
Sorry about the Zoom hang up. I don't know, it wouldn't work for me. It was frozen. Could not move any windows or go off mute. So let me share screen. All righty. So I'm going to try and keep this brief. We only have like 15 minutes left. It's obviously a very big conversation.
Let's time it to small, less than 15 minutes. You have about maybe between 5 and 10.
Yeah, that's what I figured. We have another topic after this, right? So let's leave room for that. Okay, so this is just a high-level summary of where we're at. We had over 300 plus emails in response to the call to join the discussion, which is great. The list subscription on the Jakarta EE platform dev is in the hundreds now, when it was like 50 before we started. And so that's just an amazing start to our community. This issue, even though it's very tricky, has done a great job of seeding the Jakarta EE dev list with participants, which is what we need ultimately in the long term. So that's a very good thing. In terms of where we're at, I would say in the community, there's a slight lean towards Big Bang, maybe even a strong lean. There's in the specification committee, it's still a split. And some people are not necessarily, some people are confident and some people want more data. And so ultimately, we established a deadline of June 9th. And that was really just for, okay, we need a month of open conversation before we can figure out what is the next step. And so at this moment, the next step is basically going to be to collect more data around a couple specific points. So the two primary areas where we want to collect the data, and the first one being most important, is we want to do some prototyping around compatibility to prove out these tools to see what they can do. We also want to do some work to analyze the dependency graphs between the different specifications. So here's why these are really, really important. One, prototyping compatibility. Big Bang or incremental are completely impossible proposals without the compatibility being proven. We knew that going into the proposals, but that still seems to be a comfort factor for people who are voting or leaning towards an incremental side of the fence, that if the tools were proven to be stronger, their appetite for being more aggressive would be higher. And so I think one of the major things preventing kind of a unanimous decision is proving out these compatibility capabilities. When we look at the timeline of when we could do this, we don't think it's soon. And so spending some time working on the compatibility at this moment is probably the smartest thing that we can do for our industry at the moment. Your work is encouraged there. I'll show you how you can help or talk about how to basically come to the Jakarta EE platform project. We're not doing the compatibility work in that project, but we do want to enable that via that project. The other one is analyzing the dependencies. The reason that this is important is because it could be the case that if we changed one spec, the domino effect to all the other specifications is so great that the line between incremental and big bang is minuscule and not important. And so we have started the work on dependency analysis, and there's a lot you can do on that. I did a big push on that last night, and I'll really like to show you some of that early data. But ultimately what we need to figure out is if we changed the most popular specs, say CDI, JAX-RS, beam validation, these types of things, what is the downstream effect of that change? And so if you want to take a screenshot, this is the one to take a screenshot of because it has the link to the GitHub URL. So please do record that URL so you can join the conversation there. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is curate as much data as we possibly can, because no human can summarize 300 plus emails eloquently, right? That would be a several-hour presentation. So effectively what we're trying to do is get very, very data-driven. So some days after we started the conversation in the public, we started collecting data here in the Jakarta EE platform GitHub project. All of it is in the subdirectory namespace. And I want to point out a couple key documents. One is there's been a lot of FUD or just misinformation that all JavaX is affected. It is not. And so this is a curated list of JavaX packages which are in Java SE and absolutely not affected. So the Java SE team has taken a look at this list for accuracy. It's had several eyes on it, and it's been curated, and you can rely on it, okay? So these packages are absolutely not affected, all right? Now in terms of, this is the code that is actually under the umbrella of Jakarta EE. These are the classes that are affected. So if this is a text file, so if you'd like to start writing tooling to take a look at these classes, you can do so. So this is a curated list of classes which are affected. So this is not even generic like package. This is the full list of classes. So this is the scope of what we're worried about, and no greater than this list. Okay. The most important thing at this moment, though, is, or not the most important thing. So the dependencies between these various projects is an important factor that I mentioned. So we have begun to start curating data here. We do need more eyes and ears and brains and hands on this data and to help collect data. So last night, I went ahead and did the hard work of basically writing a tool that used ASM to parse all of the bytecode of all the classes under our control and do just basically a dump, a JSON dump of each class and its dependencies, right? Let me see if I can find one that has some, right? So here we go. JavaX batch property, references, enterprise non-binding, that's a CDI class, okay? So we need help basically figuring out if we were to change, say, CDI, what are the specs that are affected immediately and transitively? We have had somebody in the community do some work on this. This is from a Maven dependency perspective purely. And so what I noticed that was a little bit is that our jars in the Jakarta project are a little bit inaccurate. But the reason for that is some of them contain dependencies which should not be in that jar. For example, the EJB jar contains JAX-WS dependencies. And so these things need to be cleaned up. But please do take a look at this particular document, look at the documents associated with it, help create some tools to do some analysis on what the exact scope of change is, and help us figure out what is the actual delta between incremental and big bang. Also, if you have any compatibility tools that you're working on or would like to start, come here, do a PR to this document, and simply list your tool. We need like 12 on this page. And so, you know, I'm going to see the time, but I would just basically say at this stage, we want many projects doing attempts at backwards compatibility in terms of bytecode upgrading and so on and so forth. And then we'll consolidate onto one or two once they've proven themselves. So this is the most specific way you can help move the conversation forward at this moment. So I will let the last 5 minutes to the last remaining topic, but you know, please do follow up on the dev list, the Jakarta platform dev list if you have any questions or any thoughts, and we'll answer questions there.
So we'll turn over, thank you, David, so much. We'll turn over to Paul White, or actually my machine. But in the meanwhile, David, if you can see the question from Scott in the chat and respond
Yep.
there, that would be fantastic.
I have a repo on my machine that I will open up and make publicly available, and we can all hack on that together. So that is an ASM-based thing, and yeah, I will push that code out, Scott.
Good stuff. Thanks, David. And thanks, everyone. So as Tanya said, I'm Paul White, and one of the things that I have the pleasure of doing is overseeing EclipseCon Europe. And I wanted to call this out for the community. We participate and run into each other at a lot of events, right, around the globe, be it DevOps or whatever. And those are great places for us to go out and meet folks who are using this and whatnot. EclipseCon Europe is a place where we come together as our own, in this case, Jakarta community, and it's an opportunity to work on things that matter, to share ideas, and to make sure that we are advancing the community. So this is the one time a year where we get together as the Jakarta community as part of the Eclipse community. So there is a dedicated track for cloud native Java, which is all about Jakarta EE, microprofile, and all of the other related technologies. And so we strongly encourage everyone to participate first and foremost by submitting a talk, right? So the deadline, the early bird deadline for this is June 30th. And the early bird, what that means is we select a handful of the talks ahead of time and promote them heavily. So get your talk in early. If it's selected, then you will actually get extra promotion associated with it. But the overall call for papers, it runs through July 15. So as I say, I strongly encourage everyone to jump in with the talk, you know, talking about the various issues that we have that trying to move both forward Jakarta EE 8 out and then going forward. But the other part of this that I don't have necessarily a slide for, but is all the events that are going around EclipseCon Europe related to this topic. So there is a community day on Monday. That is where we hope it's a wide open program at this point, so get involved in actually shaping what that day looks like. There also is a community evening on the Tuesday evening, and we're actually arranging for a hackathon, which really is just a name where we're trying to introduce folks new to this community to participate. So it's a place for mentoring, for building relationships. And so that's a new idea that we really want to build on, and we're hoping that folks who are engaged here will actually play a leading role in it. Anyways, more to be said. Check out the program, but that's just a highlight on it. Thanks, Tanya.
Okay, so we are just about to hit the top of the hour. I would like to, I think all the questions posted in the chat were answered. If you have any follow-up questions, please get in touch. And of course, I am sure that you already all have the calendar, community calendar, and you know that when is our next meeting scheduled. In the meanwhile, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and get involved in all of the aspects of the Jakarta EE. So thanks everyone, and with this I will close the call and we'll be in touch.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.